under the FDA scanner. And then in Chennai, 77 caste-linked street names have been identified as the city now begins a drive to remove caste references from public spaces, reviving a larger debate on identity, on history and social justice. And then finally, in our health segment, a single gene editing infusion cuts bad cholesterol, LDL, by up to 62%. Verve 102, that's the name of the drug, could point towards a very different future for heart care. But how safe is a permanent genetic change? We've got three stories that put health, identity and public trust under the microscope. We bring you the facts, the context and the debate. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi. First, the headlines. The Congress party clears its stand on the Vande Mataram row. Jairam Ramesh and KC Venugopal say the party is going to stick to following the 1937 resolution and sing only the first two stanzas of the Vande Mataram national song at their own events. US Ambassador to India Sergio Gore visits Jammu and Kashmir, meets Chief Minister Omar Abdullah, says the United States will reconsider travel warnings to J&K. The DRDO opens door for private players to manufacture strategic missiles, nuclear weapon systems for the very first time. An interesting form of protest. Man dons a dog mask to protest against the canine menace at Khandwa's Jan Sunwai in Madhya Pradesh. Protest over alleged financial irregularities in the municipal corporation's stray dog management efforts. What if the medicine you trust because it carries the name of a major pharmaceutical company isn't actually what the label says it is? That is the disturbing question at the heart of a major drug racket that was busted near Bengaluru. A 600 rupee medicine, a 7,000 rupee price tag and a label that could make all the difference. The medicine looked legitimate. The business behind it allegedly and clearly wasn't. The Karnataka Food Safety and Drug Administration has seized medicines and related material valued at nearly 5 crore rupees from an alleged unlicensed repackaging and relabeling operation near Bidadi in Ramanagara district. And the biggest concern isn't what was found inside that unit. It's whether any of it made its way to a patient out there. What investigators found at the premises is what makes this case particularly serious. There were medicine vials, packaging materials, fresh labels carrying the names of some major pharmaceutical companies, including Pfizer, along with equipment allegedly used for repackaging process. Now, the seizure included 5,640 vials of Cefiavigent 2.5 injection, valued at around 3.38 crore rupees. There were also other injections, expired medicines, labels, stoppers, caps, and an injection filling unit. But this is where the story moves beyond just one raid, because according to investigators, medicines allegedly sourced from outside Karnataka were being brought into the network. They were being repackaged or relabeled and then supplied under the branding of established pharmaceutical companies. And officials are now trying to establish how far and how deep that supply chain actually traveled, because reports indicate that the alleged drugs may have been supplied to hospitals and pharmacies, reportedly at prices substantially below the market price. Karnataka Health Minister UT Khadar has also raised concerns that some of the medicines may have been intended for critical care or ICU use. And that changes the picture, the stakes completely. If a counterfeit or spurious medicine is sitting in an illegal warehouse, that is one problem. But if it enters a hospital supply chain, gets administered to a patient, and nobody knows that the product is suspect or spurious, that becomes a potentially much bigger public health concern. And there is another remarkable element here. Officials say medicines allegedly costing just 600 rupees to 700 rupees could be sold for 6,000 to 7,000 after being relabeled. So investigators are now having to trace not just the premises that was raided, but the entire chain behind it, the supply chain and the financial trail. Where did these medicines originate? Who supplied them? Who provided the counterfeit labels? Which distributors, pharmacies or hospitals may have received them? And most importantly, did any of these suspected medicines actually reach the patients? There is also a crucial distinction we need to maintain tonight. The raid has uncovered material and medicines that authorities describe as spurious or counterfeit, but the investigation still has to establish the precise contents, origins, and distribution of every seized product. So, this is not simply a story about fake labels. It is a story about our trust on these big pharmaceutical labels. When a patient, doctor, or hospital sees the name of a reputed pharmaceutical company on medicine, they assume that the product has passed through a legitimate chain of manufacture, testing, and distribution. If that trust can be manufactured with a label and a repackaging operation, then the question becomes, how do we protect the patient and all those that are possibly being administered this medicine at the other end? Tonight, we're going to look at the raid, the alleged racket, the supply chain, and the safeguards that now need to be brought in to prevent suspect medicines from reaching those who need them the most. Let's put all of that under scrutiny. Urvashi Agarwal, food and safety educator, with us on the broadcast. Padma Shri Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, chairman, Nephro Clinic. Many thanks for taking on the time, doctor. And many thanks, Urvashi, for taking on the time again. Ganandeesh Kamath, former global head. Dr. Reddy, also with us on the broadcast. We've got a sublime list of panelists here. I'm going to quickly get the snowball rolling here. Dr. Bagai, first and foremost, you see, how big does this operation appear from what you've read from, the blog posts and the newspapers yourself? And let's understand the patient risk right at the forefront. If a medicine is counterfeit or spurious, what can actually happen to the patient, particularly if it's an injection or if it's meant for the ICU or the critical care?
Good evening. So I think this is, it goes well beyond the gamut of just pure simple cheating or malified intent. And I would go to the extent very clearly and explicitly to mention that this act of deceit, fraud, selling counterfeit or repackaging drugs which are actually not medical value at all, amounts to taking patients' life or willful murder. Here what happens is that if there is a crack of this nature, this can't be done alone. So obviously there is a nexus behind this. We need to get to the bottom of the entire supply chain. Who was involved? Where are these medicines or this salt powder or sugar powder coming from? Obviously they are not medical drugs. Who has got the labels printed? Where is this warehouse, under whose name? Is it on lease? Is it on ownership? Yeah. Where are these medicines being supplied to? So obviously the pharmacists who are buying the medicines, the chemist shops who are buying these medicines or so-called buying, are also directly involved in the supply chain. What happens if a drug is sold with a particular chemical which is of no value or indeed adulterated? So two parts to it. One is if the salt or the sugar or whatever solution is in it is non-medical. In ICU patients, if it's a critical care, antibiotics used for sepsis or life-threatening infection, it will not work, patient dies. If you're using it for long-term chronic conditions, let's say diabetes, hypertension, and so on, chronic kidney disease, chronic liver disease, or asthma, or COPD, these patients will not recover. Diabetes will go out of hand. We'll be adding other medications as dual drug, triple drug therapy. Hypertension will go worsen. It will damage multiple organs. This is a fraud or a crime of the greatest degree. This cannot go unpunished. Like I've said, first off, this is not in isolation. There is a chain of rascals behind this. simple penalty is life imprisonment. This is nothing short of this. Complete investigation, find out whichever set of people, wherever they are in India, who are involved in this, must find out where it is being apparently sold. They are also in this nexus. This must end.
Urvashi, what's your take on this? Dr. Bagai has painted a rather grim picture, and I absolutely agree with, where Doctor is coming from. How big does this operation look like from what the investigators have, uncovered so far? Have you tracked similar cases? Because we've been talking about food safety, but this is about fake drugs. Have similar instances cropped up in your own experience and knowledge? And are we looking at one illegal unit, or do you think this is a potentially much larger network and there could be more units like this out there just waiting to be uncovered?
Well, I've seen many such cases. Just to give you an example, last month in Uttar Pradesh, 3.63 crore worth counterfeit medicines were confiscated and 14 people were arrested. I'll give you an example of Hyderabad, Telangana. In January of 2026, you'll be shocked to know that sheep and goat blood was labeled as human blood. It was being sold, and this was happening for 1 full year, and every liter of this blood was being sold for 2,000 rupees. And in Gurgaon also, 70 lakh worth counterfeit medicines were caught. So it's not only Karnataka, this has been happening. And I think it is because profit. These people want to earn money. That's the obvious thing. Because when you package, these standard medicines, right, and you make counterfeit medicines, they come at a very cheap price. They're playing with people's health. And this is worse than food safety violations, because here the medicine which is required by a patient, a person who's already vulnerable, these kind of medicines, we don't even know whether these are medicines which have no potency, zero potency, or how are they made. So yes, I mean, this is happening, and it's not only Karnataka, it's happening all over.
Yeah, and there are, leaks in very expensive, oncology medicines as well. People have been doing these cover stories where, you've got various chains of authentication, but at one point or another point, you have a loophole where people come in and adulterated medicines quickly take over. And there is the financial incentive behind this. So, Mr. Kamath, you see, from your own expertise and experience from, this entire industry, what does this tell us about the financial incentive? 600, 700 rupee medicines being sold for possibly 6,000, 7,000 rupees. I mean, a profit margin looks real great, but on the other end is somebody who really needs this medicine. And like Dr. Bagai said, this is quote unquote willful murder.
I agree with Dr. Bagai. This is absolute, this is comparable to a murder. Okay. And this is not new. The issue, I have been tracking the NSQ data, which CDSCO publishes every month. Every month, around 90 to 100 samples are found to be NSQ, and within that, about 2 to 3% are spurious. That means this is not one-off case. There are many cases of spurious drugs are currently happening in India. And see, the chemists are supposed to source their medicines from the authorized or approved distributor. Now, if they don't do it and they source from this kind of, people, then, it's a big risk to the health of the patient who are taking these drugs.
Absolutely. Dr. Bagai, you see, in an ICU or an emergency setting, with my limited knowledge and experience, doctors often have to act really quickly. I mean, a counterfeit medicine could have the wrong active ingredient, you could be administering the wrong dosage, it could have contaminants, potentially no effective medicine at all. And in an ICU setting, when things happen quickly, I mean, how difficult is it for a clinician or a doctor to recognize that a seemingly legitimate medicine is actually counterfeit? Do the doctors out there have the wherewithal?
Yeah, so really speaking, once you have prescribed a particular medication, even be it for critical care, it can be for a patient coming in septic shock or a bleeding or a road accident, indeed in a cardiac emergency or a respiratory emergency, it is the hospital staff which prepares the drug. That's the nursing staff and the resident doctors which prepare the drug. That's why in all major hospitals, we always insist that please buy the medicines from the hospital pharmacy. There is a quality check, there is a control. We only deal with people who are known suppliers, wholesalers. We directly deal with the companies, and all the middlemen are actually out of business. What happens is in smaller pharmacies where the stocks are not recorded, the digital records are not maintained, prescriptions are not maintained, the contact numbers of the buyers are not maintained. They, for the lure of giving a particular discount, can sell these medicines off to innocent buyers. Now, the problem really is it is almost impossible to decipher once a drug is labeled and packed whether it's original or not. But the gamut of the damage goes beyond a non-effective drug or a salt or a sugar solution. There is a absolute chance, a probability of it being contaminated either with heavy metals or with toxins, coloring agents, preservatives, which can cause severe allergies, anaphylaxis, that itself can cause shock and death, and long-term effect of micro nanoplastic or heavy metals. This is something which is really, really terrible. It's one of the most heinous and criminal acts against humanity. For the lure of money, trying to take patients' life, really, very simply, in simple language, is not acceptable. There is a law, there are regulations put in. Now is the time to take out the whip, use the iron hand, and crush these snakes. They have no role to play or live in common society. These people are a threat to livelihood, threat to lives, threat to the complete medical fraternity at large. They cannot be left alone.
And I'm at a loss for words to really understand what this means for the trust deficit out there in the patients, the trust deficit out there in the larger multitude. Urvashi Agarwal, you see, the most important question is now how deep and how long does the supply chain actually go? And from your own experience of, all those FDA raids that we've discussed here on News9 as well, how difficult do you think it's now going to be for the authorities to crack the whip, just like Dr. Bagai is saying, to use the iron hand to crush down these snakes? How difficult will it be to trace the financial trail and the supply chain, where these medicines came from and where all have they gone?
Well, I mean, it's the authorities' job to do it. And so many such cases are coming up, it is high time that the authorities do a good job about it. I mean, whether it's about people's health. So, like we discussed earlier about the food safety violations and the inspections happening, that should happen here also. Regular inspection should happen, and we need to have strictest of punishment possible. Like the panelist said that life imprisonment. I agree with him. This is like willful murder. You are murdering people. You are playing with people's health. So yes, absolutely, this should be done.
Mr. Kamath, what's your take here? What checks can hospitals and pharmacies realistically perform, even at this point of sourcing these medications? Because just like, again, quoting Dr. Bagai here, once the label is pasted on the medicine, it's quite difficult to establish whether it's counterfeit or it's a genuine product.
I would say it is impossible to catch it at that end. Okay, but what we need to do is build a foolproof system. See, CDSCO introduced recently the QR codes on 300 medicines. Okay, now this QR codes, but that regulation is not foolproof. It does not require companies to put serialization.
Yeah.
So to maintain the full track and trace system, you need to have the serialization mandatory to be made mandatory in this QR code. Second thing, at the end use, either at the retail store where you are dispensing or the hospitals where they are using, they need to verify those codes to establish authenticity. Only that kind of track and trace system can ensure that we don't get this kind of spurious going to the patient.
Dr. Bagai, again coming to that question of trust, because you see, in today's time, how difficult is it really to manipulate a QR code? I mean, I can say on my product, you can scan the QR code, but it can lead to any Tom, Dick and Harry website to tell us that it's 100% authentic. But and we simply buy that as well. In the days and times of this digital revolution that we're seeing, we'll buy anything that opens up another pop-up that looks like a authentic website. It's so easy to manipulate and fool the larger public out there. are we sitting ducks here? Because from everything that I've understood so far, the summary is that once it's out there and if it's coming my way, there's no way to be stopping that. And if this investigation ultimately establishes that there were, spurious medicine that reached the patients, where does accountability lie in that case?
Being in healthcare now for just over 4 decades, it's been a lifetime. I am also running a chain of pharmacies myself under the name of Zenray. There are 3 or 4 important points I want to mention here.
Yeah.
Point number 1 is invest in a proper pharmacy software. That software gives you every bit of information from the drug name, from the company, from the lot number, from the batch number, date of manufacturing, date of expiry. Point number 2, always procure your medicines from known suppliers, which match the details of the drugs. Point number 3, don't buy medicines even as pharmacies. Don't buy medicines at a higher discount because you're getting something cheaper from unknown people. It's better to buy a medicine slightly more expensive rather than going below the market rate, looking for those lucrative discounts, because they can be absolutely counterproductive. Last, most importantly, is online prescription of sending medicines with or without a prescription. Just because it's available online on a particular discount over and above the market rate is only a one-way wish death sentence.
Yep.
They have no control on what is happening to the patient. Online portals are far away from clinical medicine. For the ease of comfort of ordering it, it is coming in 10 minutes, Blinkit delivers it, Zomato delivers it, XY. It is nonsense. Healthcare cannot be trivialized by quick home delivery. Wait for 5 minutes more and get a proper medication in hand rather than 5 minutes earlier at a 10% discount more and then suffering throughout your life.
That's a very great point. And would you concur here, Mr. Kamath? Because you see, you have all these applications. I'm not going to be naming each one of them, but if you are to buy a prescription drug, you quickly get a call from one of those quote-unquote doctors. You don't even know them. You haven't even seen them. It's a phone call that you get, and they inquire about this. If you don't have a prescription, it's so easy to fool them around as well. You tell them, look, I've been eating this for the longest time now. I've been consuming this drug, and then they just push that medicine to you for 8% discount, for a 12% discount. You're probably getting a counterfeit medicine out there. Mr. Kamath.
I can hear your last sentence, but I agree. See, the discounts on the medicines can create confusion, even if the drug is genuine. Because recently I observed a case where a genuine medicine was being sold, it's an anti-cancer medicine, was being sold at almost like 50% discount. And the person who was taking, since he knew me, he called me to verify, and I verified it with the company, and they had actually given discount because the competitors had reduced the prices, so they had to give the discount. But this kind of thing can create confusion in the mind of patients and the healthcare viewers. Okay, coming to your point of this QR code, see, there are 2 types of QR code. One is the just quick response code, which just takes you to some website and gives you details. That is one part. Second part is QR code with serialization. Here, each vial or each unit has a unique code, and that cannot be replicated. Okay, and if that traceability is maintained right from the manufacturer to the retailer, and it is verified at the retail end, then you can ensure end-to-end traceability of that material. This system is not existing in India, and if that is implemented, we can curtail this menace.
Yeah. Dr. Bagai, I'm going to come to you. Let me go across to Urvashi ji one final time. Urvashi, you see, what do you think now needs to be done? You've always helped us and the viewers understand what the FSSAI can do more, what the FDA can do more. Would you like to touch upon this fake drug racket as well?
Absolutely. I mean, regular inspections. Why do we have to wait for these rackets to come up? Regular inspection need to be there. Traceability has to be there, right? Because we are talking about people's health, and strictest of punishment should be given to such people. Because what happens is, if you just let go or give them just some minor fines or just like minor imprisonment, that's not going to deter them. So it is high time that all of this should be held with an iron hand. That's the only way.
Dr. Bagai, the closing comments here, you want to make a point?
Yeah, if you go down the Saket main road, I'm not taking any hospital names. They're large corporate hospitals, and just across the road, there are about 60 or 70 pharmacies.
Those in the national capital, I think, know what buildings you're talking about.
And these pharmacies, which are best described as Ram Bharose, are putting up large boards of advertisement on the pavements, which itself is illegal, up to 80% discount. Can someone in their correct senses explain to me, is this happy hours? Buy one, get one free. This is medical science in which how can you give 80% discount on oncology and cardiac medication? The entire system needs a cleanup and a shake-up. Lock these guys up for life, name them, shame them, block their accounts, attach their Aadhaar cards, confiscate their license, put them in jail. That's where they belong.
100%. I mean, we've seen protests about student examination irregularities. We've seen protests about the kind of fuel we're putting in our cars. Why not hit the streets and really ask who's accountable on this particular front as well? Look at the food safety raids that are doing the rounds these days. And now this fake drug racket that has come to light. I mean, a medicine is supposed to be a promise of safety, but when that medicine itself may be fake, the consequences can be far more than just devastating. Again, many thanks to my panelists, Urvashi Agarwal, Padma Shri Dr. Sanjeev Bagai. Mr. Kamath, many thanks for taking out the time and helping us understand and put these numbers and these stories into perspective. All right, then, a quick commercial breather here. Our second segment on renaming of streets in Chennai and why history, identity, and of course, government orders that are gliding over there. We'll tell you all about it. We'll decode that. Don't go anywhere.